A Nazirite, what do we know about the Nazirite vow? Okay, in this case, it's that the child that is to be born, the son that is to be born, is to be a Nazirite from birth. Okay, other vows, a Nazirite vow wasn't limited to someone being dedicated at birth. But these were the prohibitions that were mentioned. Others took a vow throughout Scripture. We have other examples of that. A vow could be voluntarily made, could be made for a period of time. But in this case, it's from the womb. So it's a lifetime situation. All right? He will take the lead in delivering Israel from the hands of the Philistines.
Ron,
Yes, sir.
verse 4 is a scientific fact which was written before science confirmed it. Just one of many verses in the Bible that pertain to science.
Yes, yes.
A pregnant woman should not drink any fermented drink.
Yeah. Intoxication is absolutely prohibited, but drinking alcoholic beverage, a fermented wine, or anything fermented is not going to be healthy. So much of what, there was a book that I may still have in my library. I might have donated it over time, but I believe the author's name was Macmillan. None of These Diseases. Anyone ever read that book? He goes into depth about the things that God forbade and how in their time they did not have the food processing issues that we have now, the procedures that we have now to make things, to take care of bacteria, which sometimes we don't get it done right, and then you get a recall or something like that. But he goes into all of these things when and this was a promise to the Israelites. It's not so much a promise to us today, and yet, a lot of those things that were prohibited are just good to stay away from regardless. Okay? And yes, so many of those things that God commanded. I like to think of it this way. When God said something and He gave it to us, He said it for our benefit. Sometimes it's hard to find that, maybe more than others. But it's God's Word is for our good, and that's true in the Old Testament. It's true in the New Testament. Okay, good point, Lewis. So, He'll take the lead in delivering Israel from the hands of the Philistines. And now, I've circled up here the town of Zorah, and this is where the man and his wife, Manoah and his wife, lived. And this was kind of, if you will, on a line. I didn't draw it down there, but if you draw a line north to south, and if you go to the left there on the screen past Zorah, a very short distance away is a town that is dominated by the Philistines, and it's Timnah. If you have watched any of the news lately, if you can stand it, this whole land that now is Israel is not, compared to the United States, compared to some of our large states within the states, it's not a particularly large area. And so there were only a few miles between these two towns, if you will. But there was the difference between the Israelites and between the Israelites and the Philistines. So short distance there. We're going to see here in a minute. Sometimes those things close to us get us in trouble. Then the woman went to her husband and told him, "A man of God came to me. He looked like an angel of God, very awesome. I didn't ask him where he came from, and he didn't tell me his name. But he said to me, 'You will become pregnant and have a son. Now then, drink no wine or other fermented drink, and do not eat anything unclean, because the boy will be a Nazirite of God from the womb until the day of his death.'" So this is a vow. This is a vow that's made with the promise of the child. Here's how you're to raise him. Okay? He looked like an angel of God, very awesome. He was a messenger. An angel, the word that we have angel today, it can be used in a spiritual sense, in a supernatural sense, or it can be used in a very common sense as someone who's a messenger. But this is an angel of God. Something about this person, he looked like an angel of God. We're not going to go there because we don't know what he looked like. We don't have any pictures. But it impressed this woman that he was different. He wasn't just another man wandered by. Okay? He was an angel of God, very awesome. We sing a song, Our God is an Awesome God. Now, this man was a standout, if you will. This messenger from God was a standout. Then Manoah prayed to the Lord. He's praying this to God. Pray, pardon your servant, Lord. I beg you to let the man of God you sent to us come again to teach us how to bring up the boy who is to be born. God heard Manoah, and the angel of God, the man of God, came again to the woman while she was out in the field. But her husband Manoah was not with her. The woman hurried to tell her husband, He's here, the man who appeared to me the other day. Manoah got up and followed his wife. When he came to the man, he said, Are you the man who talked to my wife? I am, he said. Okay. Where was Manoah's wife when she saw the man? Out in the field. Where was Manoah? Somewhere he got up. You know, we don't know what he got up from, but he hasn't seen this man. But here he goes, and he asked, "Are you the man who talked to my wife?" "I am," he said. She described him early on as awesome, a man of God, an angel of the Lord. Awesome. Okay. For some reason, when Manoah met the man, he says, "Are you the man?" You might have thought that it would be obvious, but perhaps not. So Manoah asked him, "When your words are fulfilled, what is to be the rule that governs the boy's life and work?" The angel of the Lord answered, "Your wife must do all that I've told her. She must not eat anything that comes from the grapevine, nor drink any wine or other fermented drink, nor eat anything unclean. She must do everything I've commanded her." So he says, in effect, I've told your wife, who is to bear this child, what she needs to do. And perhaps that's all at that time she needed to know. Perhaps at that time that's all he needed to know. Manoah said to the angel of the Lord, "We would like you to stay until we prepare a young goat for you." That would have been an act of hospitality, to prepare a young goat. What was his motivation? We're not going there because we're not told. Did he want more time raised that my wife is going to bear this son? The angel of the Lord replied, "Even though you detain me, I will not eat any of your food. But if you prepare a burnt offering, offer it to the Lord." Manoah did not realize that it was the angel of the Lord. Still, you wonder. She saw it right off. He didn't see it. Was she just more spiritually perceptive? I don't know. But Manoah inquired of the angel of the Lord, "What is your name, so that we may honor you when your word comes true?" What is your name, so we can call upon it when this comes to pass? He replied, "Why do you ask my name? It is beyond understanding." Is it incomprehensible? It is beyond understanding. He refused to give his name. Then Manoah took a young goat together with a grain offering and sacrificed it on a rock to the Lord. And the Lord did an amazing thing while Manoah and his wife watched. As the flame blazed up from the altar toward heaven, the angel of the Lord ascended in the flame. Seeing this, Manoah and his wife fell with their faces to the ground. When the angel, putting in my word here, finally realized that it was the angel of the Lord. He was kind of slow getting on board, but he recognizes that there's something different here. But it took a most supernatural sort of thing for this man Manoah to finally state, at least, or come to the realization that it was an angel of the Lord. Jehovah God has appeared. He has sent angels many times throughout the record of the Bible. What are some times that stand out when God sent a messenger?
Sodom and Gomorrah.
Okay. All right. Sodom and Gomorrah. Okay.
There was two of them.
Abraham.
Abraham, yes. Jacob. Joshua. Okay. What about Saul of Tarsus? kind of angel did God send?
Jesus.
The Lord. Now, some commentators will suggest that the angel of the Lord, many times in the Old Testament, could have been a pre-coming of Jesus. Okay, but we know that happened with Saul. Okay, Saul was a hard one to convert, but he made a pretty good convert. We won't get off on that too much, but sometimes the one that's the person that's hardest to convert is sometimes the best convert you can have. Okay, but so an angel of the Lord, this man who was awesome and whose name was beyond understanding. But once they realized this and saw this miraculous thing happen in front of them, they said, the man says, "We're doomed to die." He said to his wife, "We've seen God." Had they seen God? Perhaps not. Why do you say that? Well, they're still alive, aren't they? And his wife. You know, we don't. By the way, what was his wife's name? Mrs. Manoah. She seems throughout to have been. Her eyes, her vision was more spiritual, wasn't it? Okay, but his wife answered, "If the Lord had meant to kill us, He would not have accepted a burnt offering. In other words, He would have done it by now." Okay, and a grain offering from our hands, not shown us all these things, or now told us this. In other words, it would have happened if He'd intended it to happen. The woman gave birth to a boy and named him Samson. He grew, and the Lord blessed him. And the Spirit of the Lord began to stir him while he was in Mahaneh-dan between Zorah and Eshtaol. Now, Samson, the word that is translated to us today, Samson, I looked at several sources, and you got several possible interpretations of it. Sunny, a child of the sun, sunshine, such a bright beginning and a name. He is favored. His family is favored with a child in a situation that was barren. It appears that the woman named him Samson. Sunshine, and he grew and the Lord blessed him. And no doubt at this point in the story was sunshine. Have your kids, grandkids, ever called them sunshine? Yeah. Sometimes it's stormy, but yes, sir.
In the first time that the angel of the Lord spoke to her, he told them something that is sort of a key to the rest of the life of Samson, but it's as if they didn't pay any attention to it. Now that was that phrase, and he will take the lead of delivering
God's people
from the Philistines.
Yes.
So if you've got two things here. You've got these rather specific instructions, and all that they, in the rest of the story, they paid attention to those specific instructions. But this purpose is really,
key to it.
A key to it. And you wonder, what did they think that meant? Because they probably were familiar with the conflict of the Philistines and maybe some other judges. Did they believe he was going to be a judge? I don't know. But they believed he was going to start. Doesn't say finish.
He will take the lead.
He will take the lead and in this delivery. And that becomes a way to interpret the rest of the life of Samson with his good points and his bad points. That's his role. So I don't know whether his parents forgot about that, but we need to remember that as we look at this.
And there are you're right, there are a number of points we can draw from that. As we mentioned earlier, some of these judges were not exemplary. They were not the Christian man of the year, so to speak. Okay, God can use anyone to effect His purposes, and He did this in the life of Samson. And so, someone who was specially born and born to be a Nazarite from birth did not, it seems, appreciate his calling, and we're going to see that for tonight and next week as well. So, such a bright beginning, but we'll see that this child of the sun, this sunshine, if you will, really, for the most part, leads a very dark spiritual life. Okay? Good point, David. Any other thoughts? Okay. The Spirit of the Lord began to stir him. All right? What happened here? Okay, began to stir him while he was in Mahanadan and between Zorah and Eshtaol. Now, he goes down, and I've drawn the line for you. He goes to this nearby town, just a few miles really. Samson went down to Timnah and saw there a young Philistine woman. When he returned, he said to his father and mother, "I've seen a Philistine woman in Timnah. Now get her for me as my wife." His father and mother replied, "Isn't there an acceptable woman among your relatives or among all our people? Must you go to the uncircumcised Philistines to get a wife?" But Samson said to his father, "Get her for me. She's the right one for me." His parents did not know that this was from the Lord, who was seeking an occasion to confront the Philistines, for at that time they were ruling over Israel. Now, not a great distance here between the two towns, but as I pointed out earlier, this whole area of the map here, toward the southern part of the Promised Land, if you will, not a big area by standards here in our country. Okay, but you're talking about Israelites, you're talking about Philistines. And so he goes down to Timnah, and there's a young Philistine woman who catches his eye. Okay, so he asks his mom and dad to get her for me as a wife. Now, they were on the right track here in verse 3. Isn't there an acceptable woman among your relatives? And they tell us the problem. As they speak to their son, must you go to the uncircumcised Philistines to get a wife? Okay. First of all, the Philistines shouldn't have been there if they're doing what God said. And this is one of the problems that God foresaw. Why they should cleanse the land, if you will, of these people who worship false gods. They will influence you. And not only that, but, yes, sir?
It doesn't seem to me like he's asking his parents to go get her for a wife. It seems more like that he's telling them. And it's repeated there in the end of verse 3. Get her for me. Not will you, not is, I think he's saying, I think that she's the right one for me. I don't really care what you say, Mom and Dad. He kind of paints the picture of Samson kind of being a little spoiled, maybe.
Spoiled, headstrong, spoiled.
Certainly headstrong.
Yes, sir. They could have refused to go get her. Okay? If you're a parent, your kid coming up asks you for something, you say no. There comes a point in time when that child could get it regardless, perhaps. And so they were on the right track there in 3. You shouldn't be going to one of these Philistine women. Okay? Absolutely prohibited from doing that. That doesn't have anything to do with the Nazarite vow. That has to do with God saying, don't commingle with these people.
So let's throw verse 4 into the middle.
His parents didn't know this was from the Lord, and it appears, and Peg and I had this discussion earlier today, headstrong, entitled, but they didn't know. Again, as I said, God could use Pharaoh. God has used a lot of hard-hearted people. David?
I guess what we don't know is, did Samson know this was from the Lord? When he said she's the right one for me, was he speaking because God directed me that this is the right one, or is he just saying, I just want her because she's beautiful? I don't think we know the answer to that.
And it kind of goes back to the last verse of the last chapter, where it says, the Spirit of the Lord started to stir within him.
Yes.
So maybe this is one of those stirring.
Well, they didn't know, but this was God using, as we'll see, the Philistine woman, her family, her friends, in a way that was not helpful at all. But he says, and one of the translations of this says, literally it means, I like the way she looks. Okay? Not a, maybe a good basis for asking a girl out. Not the kind of thing of which great marriages will last, right? But she's the right one for me. And so, even though Mom and Dad could have refused, and at the very least not taken part. Now, at this point, I think Samson could have gone and gotten her, okay? But they are complicit. First they say, don't do this. Can't you find someone among our own people? But he said, no, she's the right one for me. After this, they are complicit, I think, in going down to get her for him. Okay? Again, these places real close together, so they go down or up, as it looks a little bit, northwest to Timnah. Samson went down to Timnah together with his father and mother. As they approached the vineyards of Timnah, suddenly a young lion came roaring toward him. The Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon him, so that he tore the lion apart with his bare hands as he might have torn a young goat. But he told neither his father nor his mother what he had done. Apparently it was out of their purview, out of their vision, if you will, that he did this. He did not tell them about it. This kind of plays in later on. Then he went down and talked with the woman, and again, he liked her. Okay?
So I just to point out, we have again in the beginning of verse 6, the Spirit of the Lord. So we've had it start in a previous verse. It's going to appear here. It's going to appear again. It's God enabling him to do something in this moment. And this point is, you would ask, what does the Lord have in mind? What does he want Samson to understand? Because Samson's the only one that sees this. His parents don't. What should Samson take away from this? What should we take away from it? Because it's obvious that this is not just simply the setup of a riddle that's going to come later on. This is Samson learning that he has superhuman strength.
Yes.
And it's enabled by God. And that connection, has it ever been so strongly made before then? Does Samson know of his superhuman strength before this event? I don't know, but this event surely teaches him that.
Well, the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon him and empowered him with supernatural strength. He's strong at this point to tear a lion apart as he might have torn the young goat. Okay? I don't think, and I think this is supported here, I don't think Samson did his parents remember why this child was born to them. Okay? Didn't always seem to be clued in. Did Samson, as he was growing up and now becoming a young man at this time, old enough to be interested in a young woman and to get married, does he understand? Does he remember? Have they told him of the promise? You have to believe they have. You have to believe they've shared this. You were born out of due time. You were born for a purpose. You were born a Nazarite from birth, and for a purpose, to lead the people in the battle against the Philistines. Okay, I think Samson, for the most part, from beginning to end, and we won't get to the end, that's next week maybe, but from beginning to end, I think Samson was about Samson. And so he's given supernatural strength. He didn't tell mom or dad. He went down and talked with the woman, and he liked her. Okay, he's still infatuated, if you will, however you want to put it. He still says she's the right one for me. That was not